Welcome to DepthCast, where powerful books become bite-sized stories to help you grow 1% every day. Having to go to work on a rainy day. Why is the boss so difficult? Even my girlfriend doesn't understand me. She's really selfish. Do these complaints sound as natural as breathing to you? Will Bowen, a social psychology expert, pointed out that complaints are like smelly breath. They are everywhere. When words come from someone else's mouth, we pay attention, but when they come from our own mouths, we ignore them. Complaining also means we are telling our subconscious that things are not okay and our life is not as we wish. Aside from adding more pressure, this won't improve the situation. It will only create an echo chamber, bringing back the negative emotions to us. Will Bowen noticed that there are more and more people complaining in today's society, so he initiated a global 21-day no complaint challenge, which has helped over 6 million people make positive changes. Later, he wrote the famous book, which I translate as A World Without Complaints: How to Stop Complaining and Start Enjoying the Life You Always Wanted. When you read this book, you will understand that those who are used to complaining often mistakenly think that complaining is salvation. But in the end, they are buried in their own complaints. Complaining is essentially anger at the feeling of helplessness. It is a mask that hides the fear of change, a weak escape route for those with cowardly souls. A person with a strong inner self, who lives truly wisely, maintains awareness and moves toward awakening, will never complain or blame others. As the old saying goes, the strong do not blame others, and the wise do not complain about themselves. However, we need to note here that stopping complaining does not mean pretending everything is perfect. The key is that you need to clearly recognize the cause and psychological motivation behind your own complaining behavior so you can truly change. When you stop complaining to yourself, stop complaining to others, then this world will have nothing left to trouble you. As the author said, you don't need to live in a perfect world to stop complaining. Your stopping complaining will create a perfect world within your reach. Now I invite you to listen to a sharing from DepthCast titled A Strong Soul Never Complains. To allow yourself to regain the fragrance of the soul, spread the energy of love, attract luck, and be filled with true happiness. People who frequently complain about difficulties will never find a better life. Very few people realize how often they complain until it becomes a habit. When that habit convinces you that you need to complain because it gives you relief and empathy. In the book, the author recounts his childhood story when he was a chubby boy. Even though he was often called fat, he didn't feel offended. However, at one party, he complained to his friends that because he was too fat, he couldn't ask any girls to dance. Then everyone stood up to defend him when another boy arrived and called him fat. A friend glared and said to the other boy, "Hey, shut up!" Another person immediately shouted, "Stop teasing him, being fat is not his fault." The author understood this but realized his secret weapon. Gradually, he turned his complaints about his weight into an opportunity to receive attention and sympathy throughout his growing years. When going to work and not getting a better shift, he complained to everyone that because he was fat, the opportunities went to others. Everyone said, "That's not true, you're great," and he liked hearing that. When fined for a traffic violation, he complained that he was fined because he was fat, and everyone mocked the police. Complaining gradually became a mental drug, causing him to become addicted. Over time, he didn't even realize he was rebelling. It became an unconscious, everyday way of speaking, as natural as breathing. In life, many people fall into a similar spiral. When you play the victim, lamenting about your body, your difficulties, or your weaknesses, you may receive attention and temporary comfort, but at the same time, you lose the opportunity to change yourself. You complain, "I'm too fat, nobody likes me." Perhaps you just want to hear others say, "You're beautiful in your own way," forgetting that you need to change your lifestyle to be healthier. You cry, "I'm old, there's no chance to do anything anymore." Maybe just to be comforted. Age is just a number, but you don't use your experience in the present moment. Then sometimes you rebel, saying, "I'm poor, so people look down on me." Maybe just to have your friends confirm that person is not worthy of you, but you don't dare to face the need to improve your own financial situation. In fact, such complaints are a mask that hides helplessness and fear when facing an imperfect self. They paralyze you in the role of someone needing rescue. Instead of finding ways to solve problems, bravely facing them to build a healthier life, develop yourself, or improve relationships, you focus more on the injustice and disappointment. The author calls this the complaints arising from unconscious helplessness, and such words have an extremely powerful force. In the heart of a complainer, they never want undesirable things to happen, but ironically, this very thing attracts more bad things to them. Venting complaints will give you a little sense of relief, but that resentment creates a strong negative magnetic field and pulls us deeper into suffering. One author said that everyone has a tendency to prove their beliefs. Whatever you complain about, life will show you just that. When you keep talking about unpleasant things, uttering negative words, your mind will be led to things you don't want. Over time, life becomes more unstable, and eventually you fall into a vicious cycle. The greatest tragedy for a person is using negative words to predict their own fate. The more you complain, the harder it is to have a peaceful life. A truly strong person will never blame others. In addition to complaining about ourselves, people also complain about others. Relationships that lack joy often have the common point that one side frequently blames the other, or both complain to each other. When we complain, relationships become stagnant and deteriorate because complaining makes you overlook the positive traits of others and only focus on things that make you dissatisfied. Once you start blaming someone regularly, you'll tend to find more things to complain about them. This tendency will lead you into the trap of dissatisfaction and make the other party develop insecurity. People who are frequently subjected to complaints feel drained, dissatisfied, anxious, even stressed. This happens in close relationships as well as in ordinary relationships. Every day we interact with many different people and always encounter things that annoy us. Once complaints start to rise, it will create a huge butterfly effect. The paradox is that sometimes you are aware that complaining is bad, but you can't stop. You feel helpless. The author calls this complaints arising from conscious helplessness. Why are you helpless and can't stop complaining when you know it's not good? Because behind it lies an addictive principle. Research shows that when complaining, the emotional pain activates the endorphin mechanism, a type of endogenous morphine which helps reduce pain instantly and creates a feeling of euphoria. Spiritual master Eckhart Tolle pointed out that each of us has an undeniable part called the pain body. What the pain body likes and helps it grow stronger is bad news, conflict and complaints. So even though negative emotions make you uncomfortable, they are like endorphins for your pain body, making you excited. Once you start complaining, it's hard to stop. It's like a psychological drug that makes you both hate it and can't let it go. You may not realize you're addicted to this state, just like someone who drinks coffee every day, but forgets the bitterness. Understanding this principle, you will realize that stopping complaining is not just about changing a habit, it's about quitting the emotional addiction. Quitting complaining can only be effective when you begin to recognize that you have a pain body, and from there, love yourself more. If you want to heal yourself, stop nurturing your pain body with your own complaints. And an important thing is, we also need to understand that you can't expect everyone around you to stop complaining about you right away, because for them, complaining is also an addiction. They are not healed, not complete with their own pain body. So instead of demanding that they change, give love and empathy. Dr. Kowalski pointed out that behind the behavior of complaining about others, there are 5 core reasons, all abbreviated by the 5 letters GRIPE. We need to understand the motivations behind our own complaints in order to truly let go of this habit. The first letter is get attention. Like complaining about your own difficulties, those who frequently complain about others actually want attention. When someone comes to you to complain about someone else, they might need to attract your attention and seek concern from you. They need someone to stand by their side, proving that the complaints they just made are unfair, not right for them. The second reason corresponds to the second letter. Remove responsibility, meaning avoiding responsibility. This is a defensive complaint where the outcome may not have occurred yet, but they have already prepared a defense mechanism to shift the responsibility by complaining. For example, someone complains that the marketing department didn't do their job, but in fact it's a preparation for excuses for their own work shortcomings. What's noteworthy is that people who complain like this usually only see problems with a hopeless outcome. When things are not yet decided, they don't try to change the situation. They just look for excuses for their failure. The act of complaining to remove responsibility, like the origin of the word blame, actually means to be blamed, to become useless. This habit makes them gradually become helpless, losing the ability to solve problems and do a good job. The third reason is to inspire envy, to evoke admiration. When someone complains about another person, they might also be implying that they themselves do not have that particular flaw. This is a way for them to elevate themselves. For example, if someone complains that my husband is really messy, they are actually subtly bragging that they themselves are a neat person. Or if someone criticizes he drives terribly, you could also understand that this person wants to say, I drive very well. People who complain like this are actually hoping to receive praise. The inner emptiness makes them want to attack others, thereby elevating their own value. However, this tactic often backfires. A social psychology study shows that when a person complains about a quality of someone else, the listener will actually think that the person complaining has that trait. Moreover, gossiping and speaking ill of others when they are not present is also a form of complaining in order to elevate oneself. In reality, people gossip not to share information, but to point out negative traits in others, thereby making themselves seem better. A person who enjoys gossiping tends to complain more and drag others into following their viewpoint. But if you join in at this point, you will only aid in poisoning the energy of both parties. The best way is to redirect attention, discover and praise the positive traits of the person being complained about, helping them realize their own value. The fourth reason for someone to frequently complain about others is power, to gain control. What is power here? It is people. The more people who stand with you, the more power you will have. Just like in a presidential election, the person who is supported by more people will gain power. Traditional media methods are also a typical example, driven by complaints. Newspapers and television stations often exploit sensational news about crises, scandals, or personal tragedies. Why? Because these negative stories trigger outrage, which fuels a cycle of interaction. The more controversy, the more views, the more criticism, the more complaints, the higher the advertising revenue. A 2021 study by Harvard University showed that bad news attracts 3 times the interaction of positive news on social platforms. Social media has taken this race to a new level, with algorithms constantly sparking comparisons by exaggerating and showcasing the success of others. From luxurious travel photos to impressive career milestones, this awakens your primal fear. Why am I still stuck here? To relieve the feeling of insecurity, many people choose to speak ill of others, think negatively about them, or find something to criticize and dismiss, like saying that their success is just due to luck, or complaining to themselves. I am really incompetent. The inevitable consequence of this is a hypocritical cycle. You can criticize and belittle others, but you might also become the main actor on social media. For example, many people use photo editing apps to have a beautiful picture, editing for hours before posting it, all to escape the fear of being judged and seeking praise from others. As sociologist Erich Fromm once warned, the more you chase the recognition of the crowd, the more you lose your true voice. The final reason is excuse poor performance, justifying poor results. This point is similar to the first reason, to shift responsibility and blame others, but the difference is the timing. Specifically, a person will try to criticize others to shift the responsibility when the results are not clear, and they actively avoid their own tasks. Meanwhile, criticizing others to justify a poor result usually happens after the event has concluded, especially when the complainer was directly involved in the process, leading to negative outcomes. They will use criticism as a way to cover up shortcomings or protect their own image, rather than take responsibility. At this point, many people might wonder, if someone did something wrong, am I not allowed to speak up? Simply pointing out the truth is different from complaining, in that it's the energy you convey through your language. He hasn't finished on time is a simple statement of fact. But when you sigh and exclaim, I can't understand why, after all these days, he hasn't completed the task, this is complaining. In the book A New Earth, it explains that pointing out mistakes or shortcomings to help someone correct them is entirely different from complaining, and these two should not be confused. Stopping complaints doesn't mean you have to accept bad behavior or poor quality. For example, if you ask a waiter to reheat a cold soup, that is a neutral request. However, saying, "Why did you bring me cold soup?" is complaining and blaming. So, pay attention to your language. If you often use words like why not, everything always, you again, etc. These are all openings for complaints or reproach. Complaints will spread negative energy, and simply ask yourself, are you saying things that, after being spoken, carry one of the 5 reasons listed above? You will know if you are falling into the trap of complaining or addicted to venting your emotions. Once a person senses the scent of complaints, immediately do the following. Let's pretend pain, complain, the more painful, continue to complain. That's a vicious negative cycle. You must start by stopping complaining to step into a positive cycle. Positive, happy, the more positive, the happier. Understanding the cause and motivation of your own complaints will help you from being helpless unconsciously and helpless consciously to live consciously and with ability. From there, you will experience life-ending endless troubles and living peacefully. To do this, you need to start building habits when you notice the first signs of resentment or complaining within you. Below are some methods I have summarized from this book and added my personal reflections. I hope they will help you become a stronger person living without complaints. First, avoid polluted areas. In the book, there is a quote: "The next time you are talking with a group of people and someone starts complaining, pay special attention. Complaining will become a competitive sport. A person radiates resentment, they will pollute anywhere they go. Every time the flame of complaint flares up, those around them will respond blindly, and everyone will join in the constant whining and storytelling. A conversation like this may seem like it warms each other up, but in reality, they create a huge emotional illusion. Only by distancing yourself from these polluted areas right from the start, recognizing the signs of negativity, and actively leaving conversations that provide no value. Sometimes being silent and not participating is a way to keep your mind clearer. As for when you cannot leave the negative conversation, listen like an objective observer. Instead of aligning yourself with the emotions of the other party, you can listen with a clear mind. I am simply listening, not to judge, agree, or express myself, and not to join in the other person's complaints to gain their favour. This separation is the invisible cushion that helps you avoid being swept into the emotional pollution. Moreover, you can cleverly shift the conversation from complaining to action by asking open questions such as, "Have you tried any ways to resolve these difficulties?" Or, "How can I support you to move forward?" This not only helps the speaker see a way out, but also transforms the conversation from negative to a creative opportunity. In the end, you can close with a sincere encouragement. As for yourself, cleanse your mind with meditation, a few deep breaths, or some light music, or simply look up at the clear sky after the conversation ends. That is how you keep your heart warm to listen while removing the negative energy that has accumulated. Listening without getting poisoned is the art of balancing empathy and awareness. You give your full presence, but you do not let the emotions of others become the burden of your soul. The most beautiful sound is silence. Lao Tzu in the Tao Te Ching talks about the philosophy of great sound is quiet. Directly translated, this means that very loud sounds cannot be heard. This phrase means that loud sounds symbolize the presence of the Tao, and the natural way and great value are not easily recognized, not noisy, and exist in silence and humility. Lao Tzu wanted to say that the most beautiful sound is the sound of silence. Just like nature operates silently, but its power is immense. A sage does not need to speak much. but their actions and thoughts have a profound influence. In a noisy era, keeping silence in the face of difficulties and troubles is the best way for a person to move forward and overcome hardships. And continuous complaining is actually a manifestation of internal lack, while silence can help us maintain vitality. When a person stops complaining and keeps themselves in silence, the positive energy from them will create a magnetic field that attracts more solutions. This is the immense power of silence. Therefore, when facing dissatisfaction, helplessness, or fear of failure, as soon as you feel the urge to complain to someone, immediately remind yourself to breathe deeply. This is the best way to keep silence within you. As Thich Nhat Hanh says, smile, breathe, and slow down. If your mind is calm, your breath will be deep and long. If your mind is chaotic, your breath will become shallow and rapid. So now let's practice right from your breath. Focus on your breath. Practice breathing exercises like the counting the breath meditation, and breathe deeply before any distress. Please remember that silence is not emptiness, but the fullness of inner strength. I hope both you and I, when facing things that are not as expected, will not immediately turn pain into words. Just breathe, breathe, and keep silent. Creating space to release emotions. We keep complaining because we don't know how to release emotions properly. People often just want to make others their emotional trash can. One of the best ways to release negative energy is to write a journal. You can also practice writing a gratitude journal, and we need to understand that a person with a strong mind can always find things to be grateful for, even in difficult and unfavorable moments. Instead of the delusion of loss, suffering, and then getting swept away by complaining thoughts and words full of distress. At the same time, instead of finding someone else to complain about your problems or blame and resent someone, you can also do some exercise, walk mindfully in nature, read a book, and do the things you love. These are the simplest but incredibly wise ways. Our lives always face numerous troubles, and everyone has their own problems. A person who truly maintains clarity will never make things harder for themselves. The final method is focusing on solutions. As Pascal wrote in his work Thoughts, complaining is a human instinct, but true wisdom lies in stopping complaining, focusing on solving problems, and thinking about other things. Complaining only attracts more complaints, but when you replace them with focus and solutions, the world will become a completely different place. Use tolerance instead of blame. Use trust instead of doubt. Use gratitude instead of calculation. Then the best solution for you will appear. When you plant flowers and grass on the ruins, the world will respond to you with a sincere smile. Rebirth your life through the purple of hope. Establish a 21-day habit of not complaining. The author has launched an inspiring campaign of 21 days without complaining, symbolized by a purple bracelet, a simple but incredibly powerful tool to regenerate life through the purple of hope. The way to do it is like this: wear a purple bracelet or an elastic band on your wrist. If you find yourself complaining, move the bracelet to the other wrist. Each time you complain, you must move the bracelet to the other side. This means you will have to start over from scratch. If you manage to go 21 days without switching wrists, the challenge is considered successful. This activity, once introduced, attracted the participation of 6 million people. Millions of people have shed the shell of resentment and stepped into a new realm of energy. As the author affirms, the power that each person creates for their own life is boundless, beyond what we imagine. When there is no noise of complaints, this world will become peaceful and unleash its boundless power. If you are ready, try challenging yourself to practice the 21-day no complaint habit, each deep breath replacing the grumble, each smile replacing the sigh. I am sure that after 3 weeks, you will see a completely new version of yourself. If this book sparked something in you, take a moment to like, subscribe, and share it with someone on their growth journey. Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep becoming 1% better every day.